Okay, this is kind of fun. I used to do this for a living when I was using drugs and had become unemployable. I think I earned a fair amount of money in a year and a half or so. I worked at a metaphysical bookshop, is what we called it, but a new age bookstore, and once a week I would have the card reading room and do tarot spreads. And I would also do astrology charts. I learned how to do that. I read a lot of stuff. I learned a lot of stuff, and I've done actually hundreds of card readings. So this is the Celtic cross, and it's is it a 10 card spread? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Yeah, it's a 10 card spread, and of course this is the cross part. And if you should pick them, but I did an intention. We start with, and it's got kind of this motion. This is the outcome, and don't worry, it's not as bad as it looks. In fact, it's kind of good. Reversed cards turn bad cards into good anyway, supposedly, if you believe that sort of thing. I kind of look at them as being highlighted because the person would be I would be here and the person would be opposite me, and so they would see those cards more than the other ones, and so they would pay more attention to them. Now we start with your basic situation. This is the your initial situation where you are right now is the Eight of Wands. This represents speed and or an accelerated pace. Wands represent energy, life force, power, those kind of things. And this means that well, you are flying along, or a situation is flying along with you. And what's crossing you here, this is the crossroads you're at right now. Is the Two of Wands. Now, this is more life energy and everything, but this guy, he has stopped to contemplate his progress. And, these go in kind of order. It starts with 1 and it ends with 10. In fact, this is a 10, so it's completion. And so this person's looking out and trying to evaluate progress. He's looking at the world. It says this is where he's at right now. I think he's supposed to be Alexander contemplating his conquest or something like that. Anyway, it's a false sense of pause. He should keep on going, but he's pausing to look at where he's at. And of course, it's the worst kind of thing with speed. Two is not it's an illusion of stability, but real stability is in the fours. That guy's stable. He's in the chair. He's got it. Yeah. All right. So this is your situation. You are trying to pause the speed. You are evaluating things too soon. Now, this particular axis, from bottom to top, represents the bigger issues. I used to say karma, but let's say your life path, the long-term stuff. And wait a minute, this isn't the way it was. I moved it, and here we are. Okay, good. Is this right? Yes. Okay, so you can see here that where you're at, what's been happening in your life path is judgment, and of course this is legal issues. So this could be the divorce, but this is also the last trumpet, the age. This is the call at the end of the age, and so in Christian terms, this would be kind of a bad thing. It's apocalyptic. But in New Age terms, it's the beginning of the age of Aquarius or whatever. But you're basically being taken out of your old, comfortable self, your coffin there, and you're being dragged into the world. And that's, of course, what happened with your divorce. And then where you're headed to is this particular guy. Now, pentacles or coins represent money, naturally, but it's also practicality. It's the earth aspect here. Wands are fire, and So the earth aspect is there, and it's a practicality. And four is a pause on the way to, let's say, wealth. Remember, I told you tens were completions, so financial security would be, a 10 or something like that. But this is four is a good stable number, four legs in a table and whatnot. And but it is not well, it's not financial security; it's financial stability. So that's where you probably should be headed, it looks like, or that's where your life path is headed. So that's the bigger issues. Now, this particular axis here is the present. This is the recent past. We already know this is where you're at right now. This is what is to come. And this is more the psychological aspects of your situation. And then kind of your, well, in Jungian terms, it would be the anima and your higher self or something like that. Or, in this case, and these are queens, so it's definitely you at this point. And I'll turn around when we get to it. But this would be, Freudian terms would be the id and the superego, but we'll get to that. So let's follow this axis. Well, the King of Swords, that would be Eric. We got the King of Swords swords represent thought. And of course, he's also a judge, so, this is a judgment. But this is the card of a judgmental asshole, the King of Swords. And so he is wielding his sword of reason, and he thinks he's right. And, you basically, well, it's good. It's passing, right? So you're going to be freed from his influence, and all these things are not only other people, but they're also yourself. So you could have an inner rigidity of the King of Swords. Sitting down, got your sword ready, and yeah. So, and then we get what is to come. Now, this is your first reverse card. So you would normally see this if you were sitting opposite me. And this is the 7 or 8 of swords. Who cares? It's a guy stealing swords, and you think, what's this about? Well, in some cases it means deception, the thoughts misleading you. But of course, upside down, it's always better. What this really means is you're taking away a new way of thinking about things. This is what's going to happen, is you're going to lose the whole Eric-centered perspective and dominating your thoughts and get into new, you'll find them wherever you find them, and you'll take them. That's what this card is about. And then we get to your psychological situation right now, and we have another major arcana. And the major arcana, where am I? Yeah, the major arcana. And here we go. And the other one was here, this day of judgment. And these are really the bigger issues. The cards, they don't mean any specific thing, unlike the swords and the pentacles and the. We'll get to cups and wands. We'll get to cups and the wands. So the star. Now, water is obviously emotion. So you are in a. This is kind of like the explosion or birth of emotion. So maybe you were unemotional before, and now you're woken up. But there's an excess. You see, the woman there is pouring water into the ground, which I assume would be productive use of emotion, and she's pouring water back into the lake, which might just be excess or not diverting things right. So you've got this overflowing of emotion, all right, because that's what water or cups represent. And then we get to let's get to this. So this would be an inner self. As I said, sort of the id, and this would be the superego. So your id is the Queen of Swords. Now, if this was a judgmental asshole, this is a judgmental bitch. So you've got an inner judgmental bitch here, and again, she's wielding the sword, she's actually out there. She's got her hand out. The king is sort of just sitting there doing his judging, but she's she's out there. So this is, and of course, since it's highlighted, it's reversed. That would mean that being a bad card, it's good. But you got to tame your inner bitch. Then, which I haven't seen, but maybe we'll see if these cards work for you. And then we have the Queen of Cups, and the Queen of Cups is one of those nice. She's nurturing. She's just wonderful. And so this is your higher self, and get some focus here. This would be, usually it means a kind woman, a nurturing woman. And so this is you, though. This is your higher self. And so this is you realizing that, stop being a judgmental bitch and realize what a good, nurturing person you are. All right, so that's the psychology here. And all this leads to the outcome, which is this Ten of Swords. Now, the Ten of Swords is, it looks dire, but, things that are death or completion actually always mean the beginning of something else. And since it's a minor arcanum, unlike the biggies there, it's the completion of something short-term. So remember, the question was, how's the house going to go? Or are you going to complete the house? And this shows that you are going to do it. And since it seems about thoughts, maybe you will look back in a few months and wonder what you were stressing about. Mainly because you didn't need to be stressing, you just needed to be doing it. And but you are, this is another one, you got this speed going on here, and trying to slow it down. And then you've got this, which is basically the end of thought. And of course, that's your outcome. And so, but it's a good card. Remember, it was reversed, so that makes it even better. And so this means you're going to complete it, and you're going to stop thinking about it. And that also means that you'll move on in some fundamental ways. Now, another thing one does, this is the Rider-Waite deck. This is, these are the other cards. And I told you I worked a psychic phone line, and I'm not the least bit psychic, or didn't even delude myself into thinking. So I would do little tarot spreads. That's why I have these little cards. And I would just, I had several decks, and I would just lay them out and answer people's questions. So I did a lot of readings there too. And I remember this one guy called and he asked me, where's my camera? I'm looking at the cards and I'm thinking, there's no card, there's no camera here. And, I was seeing love, I was seeing women and all these things. And, and no, a woman didn't steal his camera, although he was a teacher. And, I began to believe that a student had stolen his camera, but who knew, and so he goes, okay, well, what's this? He was, he hadn't thought of a woman, and it turns out there was this young teacher or his age who was single, and she was new at the school, and, he had half thought about asking her out, and the cards were saying, this is good, ask her out, or start asking people out generally. So he hung up, and then a couple of weeks later, he calls me back and he says, I found my camera. And what had happened is he had asked the girl out on a date, and he had cleaned out his car and found his camera in the trunk. And so the quest for a girlfriend actually led him to find his camera. How's that? All right, so one thing I would always do is to, at the end of an interpretation, oh, by the way, just so you know the completion, I set these aside. Here is, so this is the Ten of Swords. This is the Ten of Swords. This is the 8 and 9. And if you were to get the 8 of Swords, this is wandering in delusion. She's blind. She doesn't even know where she's going, and she's going to cut herself on those swords. So that would be a really bad card to get. And then we have this card, the 9 of Swords, which is just despair keeping you up at night. And so it's better off dead. Better just ending all the thoughts. That's you've got to kill your own thoughts. If you see Buddha on the road, kill him, right? And so I would do, and here's another completion. You see, some of them are beneficial. See the life force, the wands, the energy and force. You see, this is the 10. He's got it all under control, and he's moving with it. He's channeled his forces in a good direction. Well, anyway, that wasn't your card, so let's just take it away. And so the card I drew for the overall interpretation was this. Which way was it? Oh, I think it was this way. Okay. which is the Hanged Man. Now, this is all like a lot of tarot cards. It sounds awful, but the thing is that actually it's the same sort of thing. It's a ordeal with spiritual transformation. You know, if you think about it, he's kind of relaxed. His head's there. He's hanging by his foot. This isn't anything bad, and this is kind of like a play crucifixion or something like that. But it's very important archetypally because think of Odin. You know, I think he chained himself to the world tree or something, or was crucified on it, and then got all this knowledge afterwards. So this is an ordeal with transformative powers, which we already kind of were saying. Ordeal might be putting it a bit much, but where did that queen go? All right, well, anyway. Oh, here she is. All right, so Queen of Cups, Queen of Swords. So that's it. So that's your interpretation. The Hanged Man is wonderful. This indicates that you will be chained to the tree. You will have an ordeal, and you will come out the father of the gods, or whatever this figure is all about. Anyway, it is, but it is the transformative ordeal that leads to wisdom. So I don't know if you're going to get this done. You're going to stop thinking about it, and that's it'll be transformative. Everything here indicates it'll be transformative, and don't expect it to lead to financial security, just financial stability. This guy is stopped on his path. He's happy with his four coins, but there's 6 more. He should get to the 10 of coins, and that's it. I think that's all it. Did I say this was the Rider-Waite deck? I used to also use the Crowley deck. That's more metaphysical, but I have a few of these decks around, and boy, I just, and I used to believe it, but you have to act as if you believe it, right? So that it is.